Hello, Anjanu. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate you asking and wanting me to be a part of it.
Yes, thank you so much. Let's get right into it because I know you are on the set of another amazing piece that we can't wait to see. So can't wait for that. And so let's get right into it. Um, of course, we're on the heels of November 5th. And I have to ask, I know probably a million people have already asked you, how are you feeling 2 days later?
Um, I I just talked to a family member and they use the word shell shocked, and I think that's probably one of the things that I'm feeling. I've Another thing that I'm feeling, unfortunately, is unprepared. Um, So I feel I'm very nervous. Um I don't want to say fearful, but I am fearful. Um so yeah, all those things.
Yeah, I think that describes the way that a lot of us are feeling in the social justice community here. We had all of these meetings about scenario planning, either way that the election went, but I don't think anything could have prepared us.
Hmm.
And at least personally, in my mind, I just didn't think that we would ever have the results that we had.
Hmm.
Um, but on that note, um, in Mississippi, we have a different reality. We deal with both the national and state context. And a lot of times people don't realize that our reality often mirrors and often involves what happens at the national level. So sometimes the stuff that happens at the national level is what we have to deal with day to day, here in Mississippi. And so with that in mind, you did so much amazing work um, around fighting for the removal of the Confederate flag here in Mississippi. And that work was an inspiration to us all about being able to use art and activism and just using yourself, your own individual self in activism. What inspires you to do what you do and to stand up for what you believe in?
Yeah, I want to go back to that's something that you said about, that people sort of are not aware or tend to forget that what we deal with in Mississippi um, is very um, it is not abstract for us. Trumpism is not an abstract thing for us. We have been dealing with Trumps all our lives. They just don't have they don't have that kind of money and um, that kind of uh, global power, but they do still have that conviction, and we have had to live with that violence and the threat of that violence, and still do. Um, and we literally live with it because the fathers of fathers and mothers of these folks that we walk around with every day are committed these crimes, committed these bombings, committed these fires, committed these beatings. They committed those crimes,
That's right.
and we walk around with their sons and daughters and grandchildren every day. Um, so I don't think people really have a sense of what that is like. And when I was doing that work around the flag, it was so hard to explain to people in other areas in the north and in the west, or whoever I was talking to. They just felt that I was concerned over something that was, you know, um, you know, uh, trivial, honestly. And it took me a long time to arrive at the language that I needed for this fight for it when I talked about it. And what I arrived at finally was my ability to say that that flag is a silent form of segregation.
Absolutely.
And if segregation is illegal, at least now, if it's illegal, then there should not be any vestiges or anything that would communicate that
That's
or
right.
tell anybody that. If you
Mm,
see that flag somewhere, you know that either you shouldn't go there
mm.
or you're not welcome there. Um, if you see that flag in neighborhoods, if you see that flag in yards of people, and now those flags have been replaced or uh, added to that, which would be Trump 2024 flags. You know that who those people are. You're not welcome in that neighborhood. It is a silent tool of segregation. Um, so yeah, I mean, I knew that for a very long time when I came back to Mississippi to live, I was just I could not tolerate it. I just could not tolerate it. I had to. I didn't know what I could do on my own, certainly, but I knew I had to do something. I found, kindred spirits. I mean, I'm not the only one, Nashamba. People have been doing this kind of work for a very long time. But what I was trying to do was do things that were very, very public, and do things that people would have to have a response to. They would have to respond to or have a reaction to in some form, in some kind of way.
And I really appreciate that. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about your recent work in the film Origin.
Hmm.
And when you talked about, walking around with the sons and daughters of, people that committed these crimes, and some of them that remain unsolved.
Yeah,
Hearing to
unsolved,
say murders and,
unadjudicated. Nothing has happened to them.
nothing has happened. And, we're just expected, to walk into these buildings and, walk hand in hand with them, to serve in the legislature with them and act like, nothing has happened and that we should just forget it and act like everything is okay. So that's so important. um, as our NAACP members are watching this, and the theme of our convention this year is all in, and so we're fighting for these things in the present, but so much of the present circles back around in that Sankofa moment to the past.
Mm.
What advice would you give our members as they build their campaigns around racial justice in the future, particularly now that this election is over?
Yeah, well, I think you brought up. I think you brought up origin, and I'm glad. Thank you for doing that. And one thing that I appreciate is the fact that you call origin and not origins, because people tend to call it origins, and it's no s at the end of that. I know it's a small thing, but it's anyway. Uh, yeah, the what makes the film is based on Cast by the book by Isabel Wilkerson, and what Ms. Wilkerson is telling us and being so prescient, you know, and speaking, not really being prescient, but speaking to the moment that we were living in when the book was published, which was 4 years ago in 2020. But what Ms. Wilkerson understood, that is when in 2016, when the census was done, there was a reaction on the part of white folks in this country, because it was revealed from that census that they would no longer be the largest demographic of folk in the United States, and it terrified them. The loss of power terrified them, and the election, or the first time, what's his name, got in office. Um, we didn't realize that at the time, but that was one of the reasons why he was elected, is a response to that census, is a response to white Americans feeling that they were going to lose their power. Um, and we were not prepared for that. We were not ready for that. Um, and also, when people, I think people think that, okay, this country was capable of electing Barack Obama, but that was before they thought they were losing power.
Right. That's right.
So it's okay to put this black man in office if you know that your foundational power is still intact. But
That's
when that foundation is gone, when that power is gone, then you have to adjust. And that is conveyed, or articulated in their electoral choices now more than ever. It started in 2016, and now we see it in full effect. Now we see it in full effect now. What Ms. Wilkerson spoke to, is that the white fear of power loss. But what she also talks about, which I think is really central in terms of going forward, is she talks about caste, and how caste is a bigger concern than race. And the reason why it is because race is just a function of caste. It's just a function of it. And so what we're seeing when we look at the breakdowns of the demographics of who voted for what and who voted for Kamala, what you see is a lot. It's not just white folks who voted for Kamala.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
mean,
right.
voted for what's his name?
Trump.
It's
Yeah.
not just, yeah, it's not, it's, you have large sectors
Mm-hmm.
of the population who
Mm-hmm.
voted for him, who have been called all kinds of names by him, who have been more than one time threatened to be deported by him, whose populations in this country are literally in danger if
Yes.
they are immigrants because of
Right.
him, and yet they still vote for him.
Yep.
So you think that, okay, that makes no sense. Why would you do that? Why do white women continuously vote for this man, in the more than they do for Kamala?
Mm-hmm.
Why do they do that?
Mm-hmm.
And really is, there is
Mm-hmm.
on the part of white women, there is a desire, they are compelled to maintain the
That's right.
caste system here.
That's
They
right.
are they are compelled to do that. There's a higher caste and there's a lower caste, and
That's
they
right.
imagine themselves to be in the higher
That's
caste. When Puerto Rican men, I'm going to be really specific about, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not enough to say Latin people, like,
Right.
specific. So when
Right.
Puerto Rican men who have been, when Puerto Rico is called garbage floating in the middle of the ocean,
Mm.
and yet days later they vote for what's his face, that is an act to be a part of that caste system. So it is an aspiration to be a part of something, to be a part of whiteness, to be a part of the higher caste. And if
Absolutely.
I vote this way, then I am closer, or I am a part of this system that on its surface is excluding me, but if I vote this way, I am
Mm.
going to be included in it. And
Yes.
it's a delusion. It is a delusion, but it shows the power of the caste system in this country. It shows why people like Clarence Thomas do the BS that they do, because they're trying to
Absolutely.
maintain a caste system. It doesn't have anything really to do with race. Race is a function of it, but it is about maintaining a kind of power that is not really black, white, or otherwise. It is, I am a part of this system, and I have to do whatever I can so I can be a part of this system. Because if I'm a part of it, I have the power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So and I think like I don't have no there's nothing I have no advice to offer. I am clueless. I am at a loss. But I do think that that is another way of looking at things, you know? So if we just do the work that is around race, that's insufficient, especially if you have people who are voting not against their own interests, but when they vote against their interests, they're voting against ours.
Yeah.
So how do we talk to Puerto Rican
Yeah.
men who don't have the same values as Cuban men, who
Yeah.
don't have the same values as Colombian men, or don't have the same values as Colombian women? How
Mm-hmm.
do how do we talk to folks by respecting their identities, and
Mm-hmm.
also respecting their aspirations?
Absolutely.
How do we do that? Because it's not enough just talking about race is not enough, because we assume these folks are our allies, right?
Right. Yeah, we do. Sometimes.
That assumption, we can't make that assumption anymore.
Yeah, sometimes.
And white women have told us time and time again
Time and time again.
what that is.
Absolutely. Especially in the reproductive freedom fights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is so true. And, one thing that we've learned, and even in our own community, that we have helped people, well, attempted to help people when we could learn that if we're not looking at this from a community standpoint, and we're only looking at our lives and our practices of civic engagement from an individualized standpoint, then we'll never win. And
Mm-mm.
so when I'm talking to people and they're talking about I, and me, and mine, then, I'm kind of wasting my time in the conversation because you're only thinking about yourself. And eventually, you're still going to lose
Mhm.
because you're only going to go so far anyway, even if you're only out for self,
Yeah,
because you're going to lose your soul.
yeah, but beyond, yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a soulless kind of civic engagement if it's just about you. You are of no use to anybody but yourself. So it's not really civic engagement. It's
Right,
just self engagement. Is
right.
all it is. But I think one of my friends said the other day. She said that there needs to be there needs to be something called collective therapy.
Oh,
And I think that there's something to that, because this patriarchy and sexism are inextricable. And now we're at this moment that we really see that patriarchy, sexism, and racism are almost inextricable,
absolutely.
honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that in certain parts of the country, how black men voted made a difference in the election. Even though more black men voted for Kamala, there were certain areas in certain states where if there had been more support of her, it would have made a difference.
Absolutely.
So I think, and I've heard this, and I know that you've heard this as well, Nishambi, that there is this, a refusal of
Mhm.
black women leadership, a refusal of it.
Yes.
So our having to, confront
Mhm.
why that is, that's crucial. That is
Absolutely.
crucial. That is crucial. It is
Absolutely.
crucial. So that
Absolutely.
goes beyond race work. That
Yeah.
is like, what is it about our culture, I know religion is
Big part of
plays
it.
a big part in this. I don't think that it is a coincidence that there are female evangelists in Pike County, where I'm from,
Yes.
who are ministers who have been ordained, but they're not allowed in the pulpit.
Yep.
There is a straight line between that tradition, that practice, between men
Yeah.
not wanting to vote for Kamala Harris. There's
That's
a
right.
straight line.
Absolutely.
It's the
Same thing.
same thinking. Yeah. So
Absolutely
a lot of
right.
work has to be done with that. And that's very uncomfortable for us to do as folks, as church going folks, because we have to say, okay, what is it about what we are being taught in the church that creates this culture that refuses the leadership of Black women?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And you're right. It's so uncomfortable because it puts us in a position where we have to confront it every time we see it happening,
Yeah.
even when it's our uncles,
Mhm.
cousins, daddies, granddaddy. And it's
Our
just like
pastors.
pastors, bosses,
Yeah.
co-workers. It's like,
Yeah.
hey,
And
we're doing all the work here and
yeah, and I think culture has a lot to
yeah,
do with it,
that's
Nichelle.
right.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's religion. It's like religion has to be
Mm-hmm.
confronted, but it
Yeah.
also culture has to be confronted as
Mm-hmm.
well.
You always when you're here and wherever you are, you always call us and ask what you can do to support young people getting involved in the work. You always call our office and you always send resources to make sure that students from Tougaloo and JSU can get to places, can get to wherever they need to go to be involved in activism. What would you say to encourage young folks right now in NAACP and all of those young folks that are involved in the fight for social justice?
I don't know. I
I
don't
know.
know. I mean, I just think that this moment like requires a great deal of introspection,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I feel like, I've gotten a couple texts from people saying to me, we got to keep fighting. We got to keep fighting. We got to keep it up. We got to can't let these people do this. And we can't, God, we've been here before.
Mm-mm-mm.
Da, 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 da. And I'm like, but no, we haven't been here before. At
Yeah,
least not in my lifetime. We have not been here before.
this is tough.
Yeah, and he's not just a Republican president. I've dealt with Republican presidents, but this is not a Republican president. This is something else. And he's a man, he's not a man. He's something else with unchecked power. So I've never dealt with that in my lifetime. I don't think my grandmother dealt with that in her lifetime. At least there were things in place, right, that were um my friend used the word guardrail yesterday. Like there were things in place. And I actually had a moment this morning where I said, okay, well, at least there are laws, at least there's still laws in place. But I said, well, why am I not comforted by that?
Right.
Why am I not comforted
Because
by
of
that?
the Supreme Court.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like if you have a man, if you have this, thing, this force who essentially has evaded and eluded, having to pay for his crimes, what good is the law? What good is a law that makes it okay for someone to run for president, but you cannot have a felony and hold certain jobs or even vote in some places?
Absolutely.
So
Right here.
yeah. So I don't so I just feel like maybe my advice, at least for the moment, if I can, be so bold, is to say, take a moment, take a moment, take a moment. Like, yeah, people are like, yeah, we're gonna be all right. And I'm like, but are we? And here's the thing, it's like that it is good to question that. Because if you take a moment to question and see the fullness of what has happened, then maybe you realize, and we have to realize that we can't keep doing the same things that we've been doing. If you're gonna keep fighting, but
Hmm.
we've been fighting, and then
That's
it's like
right.
not getting the results that we need, not just
That's right.
us, but
That's
the
right.
world, the
That's right.
world. And I want to say this, um, I had a friend of mine who said to me that we were talking, and she was somebody had said something about Kamala that I just thought was completely disrespectful. And then she said something about Kamala that she thought was reasonable, but she was still calling Kamala Harris out of her name. And ultimately, she said that I voted for her, but I voted for her and I had a great deal of shame because I voted for her. And her position was, you know, that she did not agree with Kamala's action or inaction, was really inaction because she's not president, regarding Palestine. And she said that she had a great deal of shame and guilt because she voted for her. And so what I did was is I said to her, I said, why is it that the lives of Black women and children are pitted against the lives of Palestinian women and children? Why does that happen? Why does it become a
Mm.
calculation that you have to choose? You have to choose between the Palestinian women and children, and I'm talking about Black women and children specifically here, because Black women and children ultimately pay more than anybody. Black women and
Every time.
every time, and immigrant women particularly, they pay more than any sort of rise and fall of the economy. We pay more than anybody because we have more people to be responsible for, and that's facts, right?
Facts.
So why do we say, if I support Palestinian women, then I can't support Black women and children here? Forget Kamala Harris. I can't support Black women and children here. And that is the choice that sort of entered this conversation and this election, that if you are for Palestine, you cannot be for Black women. You can, if you are for Palestine, you can't vote for Kamala Harris. And so what happened is a lot of folks made a decision to not vote for her or vote for Jill Stein or not
Hmm.
vote at all, and
Right.
forgetting the fact that it's Black women and children who are going to suffer.
Right.
So our lives have to matter.
That's right.
Our
That's right.
lives have to matter. You shouldn't you
Hmm.
shouldn't be able to forget us completely and
Hmm.
reach all over there to Palestinian women and children and forget us. And see, that's what brings me back to what we were talking about originally, Nishambi, is that folks don't understand that this is our lives. So if Trump is unchecked, imagine Tate Reeves being unchecked. What is that gonna mean? I don't put it past us. I don't put it past them, honestly, Nishambi, to try to put that flag back on that. What's gonna stop them?
What's going to stop them? Well, Anjanou, are there any other projects that you're working on right now that we need to look out for? Every time I see your amazing work, I'll send you a text and be like, girl, this is the best one. And then something else will come out and I'd be like, girl, this is the best one. What do we have to look forward to next?
Well, the Nickel Boys is it's a book, it's a movie, and it's based on Colson Whitehead's book, Pulitzer Prize winning book called Nickel Boys, and it's based on a story about these young boys who were in this reformatory school in Florida, and they were abused, black children, And so the book is based on a story, thus that story, that history, and the film is an adaptation of that book, and that'll be out in December.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Thank you, thank you,
Again, Anjanou, we love you.
thank you.
Thank you so much for representing us and being here for us always, every time we call. And just keep on doing what you're doing, sister. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, and my apologies again. I hate that I couldn't be there in person. Just know that it was not my lack of desire, uh, and I hope to make it up to you guys soon. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.